A mysterious tape arrived at CBS headquarters. Within minutes, alarm bells were ringing throughout the executive corridors. What appeared on their screens wasn't the expected comedy routine, but a bold political statement that crossed every line the network had established. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour had pushed too far, and CBS executives knew they couldn't let this content reach American living rooms. 6 days later, the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour vanished from television. No explanation, no press conference, no farewell episode. The controversial tape never aired nationally, but its impact forever changed how networks approached free speech on American television. What exactly happened behind closed doors? Who decided this show had to end? And what was in that final episode that caused such panic? Let's examine the untold story behind one of television's most significant censorship battles. In the mid-1960s, American television was dominated by three networks, NBC, ABC, and CBS. Every evening, families gathered around their sets to watch programs that carefully adhered to the cultural and political standards of post-war America. CBS led the ratings with safe, familiar shows like The Ed Sullivan Show and Gunsmoke. But as anti-war sentiment grew and younger viewers embraced counterculture values, the network faced mounting pressure to evolve. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour wasn't conceived as a revolutionary program. CBS simply needed something to compete with NBC's ratings, powerhouse bonanza in the crucial Sunday night time slot. Tom and Dick Smothers, with their folk music-infused comedy and seemingly innocent smart brother, dumb brother dynamic, appeared to be a safe choice. The network believed they could refresh the variety show format without causing any significant disruptions. The show premiered on February 5, 1967, initially following the standard variety format musical performances, comedy sketches, and playful banter between the brothers. The first episodes gave CBS executives little cause for concern. However, Tom Smothers had a different vision for what television could be. He didn't want the show to merely entertain. He wanted it to reflect the social upheaval happening across America. Gradually, Tom began introducing more provocative elements. What began as subtle references evolved into unmistakable commentary. While CBS focused on the rising ratings, Tom was quietly transforming the show into something television had never seen: a mainstream platform that directly addressed civil rights, religious authority, and the Vietnam War during prime time. Dick Smothers played a more cautious role, often acting as a mediator between his brother's ambitions and the network's expectations. He provided balance to Tom's edgier statements, helping the show maintain its comedic foundation while venturing into controversial territory. This delicate approach allowed the show to evolve without immediate intervention from CBS. The transformation accelerated when the brothers began featuring guests aligned with the counterculture movement. Folk singer Pete Seeger, whose anti-war sentiments had previously limited his television appearances, performed waist-deep in The Big Muddy, a thinly veiled criticism of President Johnson's Vietnam policies. Other musical acts followed: Joan Baez, Jefferson Airplane, The Who, each bringing their own political messaging to primetime television. Behind the cameras, the writing team expanded to include younger, more politically engaged talents like Steve Martin and Mason Williams. The scripts increasingly shifted from conventional comedy to pointed satire. Folk songs gave way to sketches debating military policy, religious dogma, and civil liberties. While maintaining its variety show structure, the content inside had undergone a radical transformation. Viewership grew steadily throughout the first season, showing particular strength among 18-25-year-olds. College students embraced the show as their voice on mainstream television, sharing and discussing its content across campuses. Meanwhile, conservative viewers and Southern affiliates began sending complaint letters to CBS, creating a growing divide in the audience. Despite these complaints, CBS initially allowed the show to continue because its ratings remained strong. Inside the network, however, executives felt their control slipping. Tom frequently refused to modify content, often delaying delivery of final edits until the last possible moment to avoid censorship. Many episodes underwent hasty re-editing just before broadcast, creating a constant tension between creators and network. The second season launched with heightened expectations from both viewers and critics. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour was no longer just a variety show. It had become a rare television platform for discussing topics largely avoided elsewhere. With viewership climbing, CBS was willing to accept some controversy provided the show stayed within certain boundaries. But the definition of acceptable became a constant battle. Musical performances continued pushing limits. Jefferson Airplane performed songs with drug references. The Who's explosive rendition of My Generation literally blew out the sound system. Joan Baez caused controversy by dedicating a song to her husband, who was imprisoned for resisting the draft, a dedication that CBS cut from the broadcast. The comedy segments grew bolder as well. Comedian Pat Paulsen performed a series of satirical presidential campaign speeches that mocked political rhetoric while addressing real policy issues. His deadpan delivery made the mockery even more effective, embarrassing politicians by highlighting the emptiness behind their promises. But the most controversial element was comedian David Steinberg's sermonettes. These satirical religious monologues began airing in late 1968, turning biblical stories into commentaries on contemporary politics. One such sketch in October 1968 triggered hundreds of complaints from viewers who found it offensive to their religious beliefs. Several CBS affiliates refused to air portions of the episode. Public response was sharply divided. Young viewers saw the show as the only television program reflecting their reality. Older and more conservative audiences viewed it as an attack on traditional values. The more successful the show became, the more uncomfortable it made CBS executives. In response, the network implemented stricter oversight. CBS now required episodes to be submitted 10 days before broadcast for thorough review. Tom consistently missed these deadlines, deliberately extending production to prevent changes to controversial content. The struggle between creative team and network was no longer hidden. Meetings became increasingly contentious, with neither side willing to back down. By early 1969, CBS had lost all patience. Executives were actively discussing cancellation options. Southern affiliates threatened to drop the show entirely. Sponsors expressed growing concern about association with controversial content. The breaking point came when Tom Smothers insisted on bringing David Steinberg back for another sermonette segment, despite explicit warnings from CBS. In early April 1969, the production team completed what would become the final episode. The contentious segment featured Steinberg delivering a monologue that drew parallels between biblical Moses and modern anti-war activists. Against a minimalist church-like backdrop, Steinberg addressed Pharaoh, clearly referring to President Nixon, saying, "Take your army and go. I will not help you any longer." The studio audience applauded, but CBS executives viewed it as a direct attack on the administration. The segment concluded with a folk group performing a song called No More Promised Lands, which urged young people to reject empty government promises and redraw the map. It ended with Steinberg throwing his religious shawl into the audience and shouting, "Peace, not war. Preach it." The tape reached CBS for review, but unlike previous episodes, this one was immediately flagged. The network claimed the episode had missed its review deadline, violating production agreements. Tom Smothers countered that the tape had been delivered on time to Hollywood censors, but had faced unusual delays in New York headquarters. In private meetings, CBS executives demanded Steinberg's segment be completely removed if the episode were to air. Tom refused to make the cuts. On April 4, 1969, CBS terminated its contract with the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour without public explanation. The following week, viewers found Hee Haw, a far less controversial rural comedy show, in the time slot. The banned episode never aired in the United States, though Canadian television, not subject to CBS censorship, broadcast portions of it. Bootleg recordings quickly circulated on college campuses, and youth publications analyzed its content, describing it as a bitter but worthy farewell for a show that dared to say what others avoided. For Tom and Dick Smothers, the cancellation devastated their careers. Major television offers disappeared overnight. Tom was labeled as too risky for network television, while Dick, though more moderate, suffered by association. Every door that had previously opened for them in the television industry suddenly closed. Behind the scenes, a legal battle began. The brothers sued CBS for breach of contract, arguing that the missed deadline justification was merely a pretext for censorship. After 4 years of litigation, a court ruled in their favor in 1973, ordering CBS to pay $770,000 for violating contractual obligation. Despite this legal victory, their television careers never fully recovered. The cancellation had lasting effects across the media landscape. Young producers, including Lorne Michaels, who later created Saturday Night Live, viewed the incident as a lesson in the boundaries of network television. Michaels once remarked that without the Smothers brothers, there would be no SNL. The show's brief existence became the first significant example of political commentary breaking through to mainstream television. It wasn't until decades later that the brothers received proper recognition. In 2008, Tom Smothers accepted an honorary Emmy Award, 4 decades after the show's cancellation. During his speech, he simply stated, "Peace is harder than war," a quote that resonated widely. In 2010, both brothers were inducted into the Television Academy Hall of Fame. Today, interest in the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour has renewed through digital platforms. Clips once passed around on college campuses now circulate widely on YouTube and social media. Content once deemed too controversial for television has become celebrated as pioneering political comedy. The UC Santa Barbara archives, which house the complete collection of the show's materials, including unaired footage, continue to be studied by researchers and documentarians. Modern political comedians from Jon Stewart to John Oliver, from Samantha Bee to Hassan Minhaj, acknowledge the influence of the Smothers Brothers on their approach. Not because of the format, but because the show demonstrated that comedy could be more than an escape from reality, it could be a powerful tool for social commentary. When segments from the band Forbidden Sermon were screened at a recent television festival, young audiences were surprised by its continued relevance. Content created over half a century ago still carries a sharpness and directness that few modern shows achieve. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour stands as evidence that television can be bold, dissenting, and uncompromising. A show canceled for speaking truth to power has become one of the clearest examples of how entertainment can transform cultural conversation, proving that sometimes the most significant voices are the ones someone tried to silence.